So in this video, we are going to be looking at Truthy and Falsy values. So Truthy and Falsy values are a concept in JavaScript that refers to the idea that certain values are evaluated as either true or false in Boolean context. So this is an example. So we started looking at this in our previous video. So this is going to be evaluated to either true or false. So we are going to look more into this to see how this happens. When a non-Boolean value like this is a non-Boolean value. When a non-Boolean value is evaluated in a Boolean context as part of a conditional statement. So conditional statements, like we've mentioned, evaluates to true or false. So they are always in Boolean context. So when a non-Boolean value is evaluated in a Boolean context, JavaScript will automatically coerce it to a Boolean value. So we just finished coercion, which talks about converting a value from one data type to another. So if a non-Boolean value, like age, in this case, age is a string, it's not a Boolean value, is used in the context of Boolean, then this will be converted to a Boolean value. So let's see. So if we are converting this to a Boolean value, what are we going to get? So this is 10 as a string. So if I convert 10 as a string into a Boolean value, what do I get? Will I get a true or a false? So it can either be true or false. It can't be anything outside of that. So the following values are considered false in JavaScript. So this is like a sheet that contains all false values. So false is false, 0 is false, empty string is false, null is false, undefined is false, none, which means not a number, is false as well. So if you have a value like this, any of these values in your program, and you use it in the Boolean context, then it's going to be false. So all these are false values. So anything outside of this is true. So anything outside of this, we evaluate to true. So you need to take note of this. This is very important. So false is false, 0 is false, 0 like in a number. So take note, if it's a string, it's not going to be false. So if you put this in double quote, this becomes a string and not a number. So if you have 0 as a number, then it will be false when used in a Boolean context. The empty string like this, whether single quotes or double quotes, once you have an empty string, it's false as well. Then null is false, undefined is false, and none, that's not a number, it's false. So coming back to our if statement, we asked a question before. So we said if we write this if statement like this, we have said that this age is going to be converted to a Boolean context. And if we are converting it to a Boolean context, that means we're going to have either a true or a false. So what is going to be the value of false? So comparing this value, the value we have here, which is 10 as a string, to the value we have here, you can see that it doesn't fall in any of these values. It's not a false, it's not a 0, it's not an empty string, it's not a null, it's not an undefined, and it's not a none. And we have said anything that is outside of this automatically is what? True. So since this age is not any of these values, then it means it's going to be true. So when this is converted to a Boolean context, it's going to be true. So if we say if age, then we can say console.log the data is valid. like this. So this can be used in a situation where you want to do validation, right? So someone passed a value and you want to validate it to be sure that the data is valid. Now, mostly if data is passed in any of these formats, it's something you are not expecting, right? So if you convert to a Boolean context and it's false, then it means the data is not valid. So we say console.log use a single, so the data is not valid, like this. So let's delete this, we don't need any of this. Good. So if we run this, it says the data is valid. That's because this evaluated to true. This evaluated to true. Now if I change this to an empty string like this, it says the data is not valid. That's because this evaluated to false. So if we check with any of these values, if we say age is false, or let's say this is a true, let's just put it like this so that it will be clearer, and this is a false, right? So if age is false, then it says this is a false. Good. If we change this to what's the next value, 0, it says this is a false. Let's clear again. Then empty string, we have done that before, but let's do it again. So empty string like this, it says this is a false because the value evaluates to false. Then null, so we say this is null, null like this, says this is a false. Then for undefined, you don't specifically assign undefined in your code like this, right? So you don't specifically do this. So once you declare a variable and you don't assign a value to it, then automatically JavaScript assign undefined to it. So if we say let age, then age is undefined. So if you run this, you say this is false as well. Then none, so let's check with this as well. So this is equal to not a number, and it says this is a false. So aside these values, any other value you use, even if you use, let's say -5, that means -5 negative number doesn't fall within this range. So if we do that, say this is a true. If we use a positive number, this is a true. And if we use a string like this, this is a true. So any value that falls outside of this is a true. So you need to take note of that. So all other values are considered truthy. So any value that is not in this range is considered truthy. This means that if you use one of these false values in a conditional statement, it will be treated as false. So this example, so you can see how this is used. So all this will be evaluated to false. So if you say if false, then this will not be executed, because remember that this will only be executed if it's true, right? So this evaluates to false, so this block will not be executed except you have an else. So if you have an else, then the else will be executed. Truthy and falsy. Okay, on the other hand, if you use any other value in a conditional statement, it will be treated as true. So we have mentioned that. So if you have any other value outside these values here, then they will be treated as true. Okay, so that is it for this video. Just to emphasize also, or to emphasize more, that These Truthy and Falsy values are used mostly with if statement. You can use them even outside of if statement, right? So if you're working, I use them a lot with React when you're working on front end and you want to render a component depending on some value. So if the value is maybe loaded in the system or not, so you want to use something like this. So this this gives you a cleaner code and it makes your code typing of code easier as well. So if I want to check, let's say I want to check if this data is valid, normally I will have to start doing something like this. If age is, that means not equal to empty, and age is not equal to, let's say, null, and age is not equal to let's say undefined, and age is not equal to what else, let's say none, and age is not equal to let's say false, right? Now the implication of doing this is it makes your code longer, and if you omit any of this, that means your validation will not work. So you can say that using the Truthy and Falsy values is simpler and it gives you a more authentic code. So if you understand this very well, you are going to write cleaner code as you get to write work on bigger projects. So that's it for this video. See you in the next video.